taking a break from the bad news and the controversy, let's talk a little bit about something on the more positive side of things. And positive as in very, very positive. Positive as in one of the top 5 in the entire NHL positive amongst 4 lines per NHL team. So, among 120 lines, pretty much. This was an article that came out on Sportsnet, the 5 best lines in the NHL halfway through the 2019-20 season. Now, right away, there's a lot of questioning. Okay, what does that mean? What does top 5 mean? Top 5 in the NHL for lines. How do you measure that? Do you measure that by goals? Do you measure that by total points? Do you measure that by the analytics? Well, the Sportsnet article here takes a look at 5v5 statistics, and it talks about how players and lines can influence the turn of the game. It does this by measuring the on-ice differential of 5-on-5 play for these lines. So let's go over this list right here because, spoiler alert, you clicked on this video because you're most likely a Canucks fan. You're subscribed to my channel because you're most likely a Canucks fan, or a Habs fan, or a Red Wings fan, whoever. But the Vancouver Canucks 649 line is one of the top 5 lines in the NHL in terms of on-ice differentials at 5-on-5. These differentials are measured by the likelihood of goals, inner shot slots, shot attempts, and slot passes by the teams when said line is playing. This is measured by taking a look at how many times the team the line is on does it versus how many times the other team does it when the same line is on the ice. You want these statistics to be above 50% because it means that your team is doing this category of statistic more than the other team when your line is out there. So this Sportsnet article goes over the top 5 lines at 5v5 in these categories. The lines are Point, Kucherov, and Palat, Malkin, Guentzel, and Rust, Bergeron, Marchand, Pastrnak, that's not a surprise, Pettersson, Boeser, Miller, and Stastney, Stone, and Pacioretty. So just like that, the Vancouver Canucks have one of the top 5 lines in the league in terms of on-ice 5-on-5 differentials. But wait, the 649 line actually hasn't been together all that much. Boeser was demoted to the 3rd line, playing with Gaudette. It's been kind of interesting in Vancouver. But it is also really interesting to note how equally good the 649 line has been. In order for a line to make this list, Andrew Berkshire, the writer, talks about how a line needs to have a minimum of 200 minutes played together, so the statistics can actually be measured accurately. So that's what we have here. 200 plus minutes played for the 649 line. Let's take a look at their little graph over here. So you can see goals are at about 67%. That means that when the Boeser, Pettersson, Miller line is out there on 5-on-5, the Canucks score 67% of the goals, and the remaining 33% of the goals are scored by the other team. Pettersson, Boeser, and Miller get just over 50% of inner slot shots, which means shots that are taken in the inner slot area, so in the middle of the ice right in front of the net. They get more of those chances. In terms of the shot attempts, the Canucks get more shot attempts than the opponent by about 8-ish% when Pettersson, Boeser, and Miller are on the ice at 5-on-5. And the same thing goes for passes into the slot. So nice centering feeds, plays from outside in the perimeter into the middle. The Canucks get more of those as well when the 649 line is out there doing their thing. Among all these statistical categories, the Vancouver Canucks are so net positive that it puts them among the other elite lines in the NHL. Now, it's kind of funny to me to take a look at how good this line has been on paper while also using the eye test, because watching this team, you can see that the 649 line hasn't been as effective as it was earlier on. I think a lot of that does have to do with the fact that Boeser has indeed been trying to force those passes to Petey. Boeser hasn't been shooting it all too much, and overall he was demoted to the third line because of that, because they want him to shoot more. It's really interesting to see just how good this line has been, even with all those minutes played where they weren't all too great. Because I'd be lying if I said the 649 line has been amazing every single minute, every single game, every single time they've stepped out onto the ice. It's had its down spots, which is why the line has been separated, but it's been so good in the time that it was together as a whole that it is literally a top 5 line in the league. For the fun of it, let's go over the other top lines in the league. Point, Kucherov, Palat. Geez, these guys score almost 70% of the goals when they're on the ice than the other teams. Look at this graph, man. They're so good. And that's come to be expected with the Tampa Bay Lightning. They're the Lightning. We know they're good. They do need to go on a crazy good run of like 33-1-0 or whatever in order to match their record from last season, which is not going to happen. But the fact is, Tampa Bay is still loaded with talent, and we know that. Moving on to the other lines, however, Malkin, Guentzel, and Rust have a pretty good graph as well. They score about 67% of the goals on the ice when they're there. That's really similar to the Vancouver Canucks 649 line. And I know Malkin, Guentzel, and Rust isn't Crosby. There's no Crosby there, because Crosby has been injured the majority of the year. But good golly gee, Bryan Rust. What an improvement season for Bryan Rust. He's an absolute stud, coming out of nowhere, coming into the playoffs, winning a Stanley Cup or two, and now playing with Guentzel and Malkin, the guy's absolutely on fire, when their best player Crosby has been out. So, that's not a surprise. Bergeron, Marchand, Pastrnak, there's really no need to talk about these guys. These guys were one of the best lines in the NHL last season. They're one of the best lines in the NHL this season. The shot attempts, the goals, it's all there for Bergeron, Marchand, and Pastrnak. And then the other line, it's really interesting to take a look at this last line here. Paul Stastny, Mark Stone, and Max Pacioretty. Unlike the other lines on this list, their goal differential isn't amazing. It's just under 52%. So that means that when this team is out there on the ice, they only score just a tad more than the opponents. But taking a look at every other category, shot slots, shot attempts, slot passes, they get so many more than the opponent in regards to how many goals they score. It's a really weird metric, but you can kind of see the different levels of efficiency here. A Pettersson, Boeser, Miller line gets a lot more goals, but a Stastny, Stone, Pacioretty line creates a lot more offense. And that kind of tells the tale of how beautiful advanced analytics could be. Actually, before we end off this video, let's talk about the Vancouver Canucks once more. Read the little excerpt from the article here. I should have done this earlier, but I'm sorry, guys. The Pettersson line has actually fallen off in controlling both shot volume and shot quality by location compared to the first quarter of the season, but they've increased their control of slot passes and maintained a completely consistent pattern of controlling 2/3 of all goals scored when they're on the ice. So the article even acknowledges it here. The 649 line was better earlier on. In fact, they're not even together anymore. But still, they were really good when they were together. Not just via the eye test, but the goal test and the differential test. And comparing it to all other lines in the league, the 649 line is one of the top 5. And that's something that I didn't realize we would be getting when we traded for JT Miller all the way back at the 2019 NHL entry draft. Imagine that. A first-round pick, Marek Mazanec, and a third turned into the player that completed the 649 line and made this line one of the best in the NHL. Now that, to me, sounds like a win. Sure, it's not together anymore, but hey, they're still really good. I have no doubt that the 649 line will be back. We'll see them together. So, until that happens, let's just revel in wonder at how good it has been when it was here, and just hope for the best down the line. Hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.